The room was electric, not with cheers or applause but with the kind of energy that prickled across the skin. Sharp and unnerving, like the air just before a summer storm cracks the sky in two. Inside the congressional hearing room on that sweltering July afternoon, the tension was so thick, it could have been sliced with a butter knife. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the crowd shifted restlessly in their seats. Reporters lined the back wall, cell phones and cameras trained forward like a forest of blinking eyes. America was watching. Every word spoken today would ripple far beyond the marble pillars and old wood of Capitol Hill. Seated on one side of the long oak desk was Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, OC, to the world. She wore a sharp white blazer, hair pulled tight, a stack of notes spread neatly before her. Her eyes burned with that unmistakable fire, idealism, conviction, and yes, anger. Anger at a system she saw as corrupt, bloated, indifferent to the people she fought for. On the other side sat Kennedy Sloan, newly elected representative from Oklahoma's 3rd District, a former combat veteran, rancher's daughter, and proud daughter of America's so-called flyover country. Kennedy was an enigma to many in Washington. Unapologetically conservative, but unusually articulate and grounded, with a voice that carried more like a song than a shout. Her charisma wasn't flashy. It was earned. She had spent her 20s patrolling the scorching deserts of Afghanistan, her 30s helping rebuild her family's dying ranch from dust. She'd never been to an Ivy League school, never worn heels until her first day in Congress. But today, she wasn't here to play politics. She was here because America needed to hear something different. AOC's voice sliced through the room. This country, she said, gaze unwavering, is broken. The system fails our people every single day. Healthcare, housing, climate, everywhere you look, the structure is cracking. And instead of fixing it, people like you put duct tape over it and call it patriotic. A few heads nodded. Others stiffened. Kennedy leaned forward slowly, fingers laced together like she was preparing for a prayer or a fight. There was a pause, the kind that stretches into eternity. Then, she spoke. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, she said, her voice low and calm, with all due respect. You don't get to call my country broken. And the room went dead quiet. Kennedy hadn't always planned to run for office. Her life was horses and hay bales, wind-beaten roads and early morning prayers whispered into the rising Oklahoma dawn. Her mother, a schoolteacher, had died young. Her father, a man of few words and hard hands, taught her that America didn't owe her anything. You fight for your place, he used to say, and then you fight to keep it. When her brother died overseas, she'd enlisted the next day. The war hardened her, but it also clarified her purpose. She saw what America looked like outside. Of America broken villages, governments riddled with rot, children clutching rifles like toys. She saw women buried alive for learning how to read. She came home to a different kind of war. Bankrupt farms, hollowed out schools, towns losing their kids to addiction and despair. But even then, she never once believed her country was broken. Wounded, maybe tired, divided, but not broken, not like AOC claimed. Back in the hearing room, Kennedy's voice grew stronger. You see cracks in the walls, so you want to tear down the whole house. I see the same cracks, and I want to fix the foundation. That's the difference between you and me. AOC's face flickered just for a second. A blink of emotion. A small catch in her throat before she could fire back. I don't want to tear anything down, AOC said. I want to rebuild what was promised. And what was promised, Kennedy shot back, was liberty, not guarantees. Opportunity, not comfort. You talk about justice like it's a blueprint you can hand out from a committee room. But real justice? It's messy. It's earned. And sometimes it looks like a mother working 2 jobs to pay for her kids' braces instead of waiting for the government to do it for her. There was murmuring in the room. A camera light blinked red. Somewhere, someone coughed. Kennedy paused, then, not for dramatic effect, but to gather her own breath. She wasn't angry, but her chest ached, with something deeper grief, maybe. Grief for a nation that had stopped listening to itself. "Do you know what broke me?" she said softly, eyes locked on AOC. "It wasn't war, it wasn't loss. It was coming home and watching people spit on the very idea that this country was worth fighting for. That broke me. Because if we don't believe we're redeemable, what the hell are we doing here?" The hearing went viral, of course. It was clipped, shared, memed, dissected on every podcast and pundit show in the country. Headlines screamed about Kennedy's mic drop moment. But none of that mattered to her. What mattered was what came after, because what the cameras didn't show was the conversation the two women had afterward, long after the hearing ended, in the quiet hallway just outside the chamber. AOC approached her, still sharp, still proud, but something softer lingered behind her eyes. "I meant what I said," she offered. Maybe I said it the wrong way." Kennedy nodded. "I know, you care. I don't doubt that." They stood in silence. Two women from different worlds, South Bronx and rural Oklahoma. Urban justice warrior and country soldier. But, for once, they weren't debating. "I think sometimes," Kennedy said finally, "we speak two different languages. You say broken, and I hear hopeless. But maybe to you, broken means unfinished. Still in need of repair." "That's exactly what I meant," AOC said, surprised. Kennedy smiled, small but sincere. "Then next time, say it like that." The weeks that followed were messy. There were protests, town halls, angry donors, furious media takes. Kennedy's words were held up by some as gospel, demonized by others. AOC got both love and hate in equal measure, but behind the noise, something quieter was happening. They began to work together on a small bill, at first mental health funding for veterans in underserved communities. It passed. Then came a joint op-ed, cautiously forethought, calling for bipartisan reform in rural and urban infrastructure. It raised eyebrows. It also started conversations. And slowly, people began to look past the sound bites. Kennedy still got hate mail. AOC still got death threats. But in those rare moments, when they spoke from the heart instead of the script, something real happened. One afternoon, at a school in Tulsa where they'd gone to speak about civic engagement, a young girl asked Kennedy a question. "Do you think we're broken?" Kennedy paused, thought about the question. Thought about her father's calloused hands, her brother's empty boots, her mother's grave beneath the cottonwood tree. And then she said, "No, I think we're bruised, but bruises heal. As long as we're still talking to each other, there's hope." The girl smiled. So did AOC. The lesson was simple. Not easy, but simple. You don't have to agree to understand. You don't have to surrender your beliefs to find common ground. And sometimes, the most patriotic thing you can do is listen to those you fear, to those you oppose, and yes, even to those who call your country broken. Because maybe, just maybe, they're trying to fix it too. And maybe the real fight isn't left versus right, but despair versus belief. In that battle, Kennedy wasn't interested in destroying anyone. She was interested in rebuilding everything, including hope.